In the connected era, information is always at your fingertips. What makes your message stand out? In this series, we are going to meet a diverse range of people whose messages are influencing the masses. Let's find out how. In this episode, we have a wonderful guest, Paul Sanders. Paul is a friendship and social skills coach. He's also the author of the book, Get the Friends You Want. Hi, Paul, welcome to GOI Connect. It's really a pleasure to have you here with us, and I'm so curious to learn more about your adventures, your book, your story. I think everyone wants to know more about you, and we've been chasing you for a long time. So please share with us in our audience everything. We wanted to know every little.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much. It's been a while that we wanted to record this, so this is a good opportunity to talk and share with you a little bit of my story, what I do, and why we're here. So this is a great opportunity. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Fantastic. So, Paul, how did you start with your, because you're touching a subject that is a bit difficult, really, friendship, social skills.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we talk a lot about these things today, but it's hard to write about it. How did you manage to start your book? What was that ignited the whole thing for you?
So a few years ago, I mean, this is the world changes actually, and if you compare with like 15, 20 years ago, this was a subject that nobody actually touched as much as today, and it used to be that if you were like your childhood will determine your adulthood when it comes to your social life and your social skills. So if you were a kid and you had friends, you had social skills, and you were extroverted, you can talk to anybody you want, that's the level you would have as an adult. And if you didn't have that, and if you were, for example, now everybody talks about bullying, but if you were bullied as a child, you would have like those scars in your personality as you grow up, So these things were not treated as much as today. They were not talked about as much as today. And also introversion was not understood as much as it is today. So introversion was seen as something wrong with you. If you like to be by yourself, if you like to spend time with on your own, that would be like a weird thing. It's not like today where everyone, pretty much everyone understands that some people actually like and have no problem spending a lot of time alone, And so I was growing up. I was not like, for example, I was not bullied. I was just an introvert. I was shy. I actually changed schools, so that was difficult to build friendships as you change school when you're growing
that happened to me as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what happened when I was in high school. Actually, I started struggling with this a little bit more. And when I went to college, I started to read books and go to the internet and try to find solutions. And the solutions I found were all about, of course, I've read How to Win Friends How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that was my starting point. And of course, that was too general. There was no like action steps, what to do, where to start, etc. It's a great book. It's a classic, but it's also very, very general. It's about the character that you need to have in order to have friends, to have influence on people and all that. But there was no guide. There was no guide with steps and action steps you can take, for example, to go from strangers to friends with someone, So there was no plan, Are there any steps you can take? And if there are, what are they, And if you're not used to having conversations, if you're not used to, being social and mingling and having fun with people you meet for the first time and second time and all that, how do you change that? Is it possible? So that was the question back then.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to change this? Is it too late if you're at 20, if you're 19 and you don't know? I mean, can you change? So that was the question back then. And then I started, I experimented with a lot of things. And the big difference the big moment was when I got to know people who are very successful socially, and these were expatriates, and they are very good at making friends. I mean, these guys like go
It's a
to new
survival,
city.
right? It's a
Excuse
survival.
me?
It is a survival thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So they go to a new city, and you give them a couple of months, they already have a social circle. So that was great. You know, how can I do that? So I started actually meeting them and making friends with them, and I started learning. I started seeing what they did and how they behaved, and not every one of them were like this extrovert, bigger than life. They were some of them were very reflective people, were had an interest in inner life. So not every one of them was very extroverted. Some of them were extroverted, some of them were not. So I was interested, and I found it interesting because some of them had the same character as me. They were introverted. They were interested in things many people are not interested in. They like to go into details in subjects, and that's what it is. That was interesting because I found some people actually are like me, and can be very social. So that was great. I learned from them. I experimented what I was learning, and at some point, some of my friends told me that, yeah, you've had this change process. Why don't you start a blog? Why don't you share this stuff? You know, and I said, yeah, why not? I never considered myself a writer. Why would I, why would I do this? But it was weird. It was a little bit a new venture. Okay, let's do this. And I did it, and I've had a lot of interest. Some people started to subscribe to my newsletter. I started to write more and more articles and send more and more emails. And then they said, you have to write a book. So,
what's
okay,
the next
write
step?
a book. Yeah. All right, write a book. I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. Back then I was not, And then when in the process of preparing to write the book, actually I went I've had 3 sources of lessons on how do you socialize, how do you make friends. So the first one was the very successful people socially, very socially successful people, my own experience. And the third one, which I lacked, was the science, So that's to prepare for the book. I did a lot of research on the science that was done on friendship and the social part of being a human being. So that was amazing. A few years of research, So I didn't know these things even existed, and most of them are pretty recent things, Mm-hmm. So of course, I'm going to give you an example. For example, loneliness is very dangerous, for example, for your health, all right? If you go back 20 years ago, there was no research to actually prove that. Mm. It was common sense that you shouldn't stay lonely. It was common sense. Anybody you talk to, they would say, of course you shouldn't be lonely. But now we have the science to back it up.
Lonely, for long periods of times, because I believe believe that being alone is essential as well to find your own time. But what you're talking about is loneliness in an extended period of time, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, and at the same time, yeah, you can spend time alone. That's just spending time alone is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is really feeling disconnected. Correct. From others, feeling disconnected. So after that research, I had like 3 sources of good material: my experience, the experience of very socially successful people, and the third one was the research from scientists. And it was pretty recent research, so I was excited to share all that. So I put all that knowledge, all those techniques, all those action steps, I put them in the book, and then on my training, and a few years after that, we're here. So that's good.
Amazing journey, amazing. And I think it's a great example for many people who think, I'd love to do this. People tell me that I'm good at this, or I have this amazing skill. But is that the action moments that sometimes people lack, right? It's like, let's get started, let's do it. And it's always so difficult for many people to find that moment where, I will do it. It doesn't matter if I have, other studies ongoing, if I have to work in a different place, I will find the time to do it. And I always admire people that find time and then, have a plan and then they really stick to it. It's really, it's a great example. It's a great example, Paul.
Okay.
I think you can
Well,
inspire
I learned from, I'm sorry, I just learned from others. I don't think my story is very exceptional. I just learned from those who were around me, who are my friends, who encouraged me to do this, and also from books, so that was very typical, but you have to actually put it into action, as you said. It shouldn't be just a plan, just a dream. You have to do it.
And the funny thing is that there are so many people that come from that place where being introverts, and suddenly they are the biggest speakers or authors or, people that are actually communicating their message with more effectively than the ones that are extroverts. Isn't that funny?
So?
I guess, well, there is a science behind. Maybe you can tap on that.
Actually, I would be interested because you talked about speaking and public speaking, and you're the expert on that. So, do you think there is a difference between an introvert and extrovert public speaker? Have you seen any patterns?
Yes, there are many differences. But what I've seen lately, it's that there are many introverts that are really excelling at it, and they are the ones saying, "Oh, I'm an introvert. I'm not very good at speaking with people." And then when they put themselves into the work and they really practice and they really put themselves into learning, they excel, sometimes better than an extrovert person that thinks I just have it easily because I know how to talk with people and it's easy for me. But it's not only about knowing, public speaking is a little bit more complex. It's not only about knowing how to talk with people. You have to be able to deliver a message that it's reachable to the audience that you have in front of you. So it doesn't matter if it's an audience of 2 people or an audience of 1,000 people. So it's really a different subject. But going back to you, so that is a question that is in my mind. I've been thinking about. So, what is the formula? How would you define? Because I love this part of the science and I just a little bit more from your brain. How do you define that formula of friendship?
Okay, so the formula of friendship, it's actually backed by science. Actually, I was learning it from people directly, and then when I went to the science, I saw that some people in the 90s and from the 70s to the 90s, they were actually thinking about this and actually doing studies and research on how actually the friendships that got created, how did they get created? And they asked thousands and thousands of people, and they found some patterns, on how, what are the conditions that need to be there for a friendship to emerge, So the first, I can share with you now the friendship formula. It's going to be a little bit theoretical. I'm sorry, but that's how, I'm actually giving you, it's like the code, so it's like the background of what's going on the background to form a friendship. So the first thing is the environment must be right. Okay? So I'm going to explain. The environment must be right. It means that you have to have a reason for the friendship to get created. You have to have some kind of context that brings you together. This is why it's very hard to make friends with people you meet on the street or very randomly. So it's always something that's brought you together. Maybe it's school, maybe it's work, maybe a friend in common, maybe an event, a birthday party where something brought you together. So that's the easiest way to, that's always the start.
Sorry, Paul, and it can be also a positive event or even a negative event. It doesn't matter. In situations of a negative event, it could bring people together as well and become really friends,
Yes, it can be anything that's brought you together. But this is a distinction that is important because many people think that they can go to restaurants and bars and meet people. That doesn't happen, You're not going to go to a bar and make friends unless it's a very local bar where people are so small. There is like a connection where you can talk to people even if you don't know them because it's just a small town and everybody's like, it's like it brings you together even if it's in public. But in general, if you live in a normal sized city or big city, that's not how it works. You have to
Well,
have
I think
something.
I'm an exception because I met my husband in a nightclub. So, and
Okay.
I'm an exception on that one.
That's an interesting exception. Here's why. Because that's like romance. Romance doesn't need a reason, you know. So if you approach a
It
woman
was
as a
love at first
man,
sight. Yes, yes.
so if you're a man and you approach a woman, or a woman actually approaches a man, which happens, if that happens, there is always that reason. Of course, romance doesn't need a reason. We know that there is the possibility of a relationship there, you know. It's there. For friendship, it's not there. You have to have a reason. You cannot just go to someone and just
You want
start
to be my
talking.
friend? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, if you're super socially skilled, probably you can do it, but in general, if you look at all the friendships that already exist, that's not the case. It's maybe school, it's maybe an event, it's maybe something happened and that's brought you together.
Yeah.
Is it clear? Because it's
Yeah.
a distinction that most people actually miss.
I think it's a very important point, because one thing is you go out and you meet people and you connect. Maybe you can have a good connection and you have a nice talk, you have a nice conversation. But there's a difference of saying, okay, now after this conversation, we are good friends, or we became friends, or I can call you my friend. It's true, especially in certain cultures. The whole thing for friendship can be really intense. It depends sometimes in many other aspects, which probably you can talk more about it. But for example, in my culture in Brazil, it's easier to make friends because everyone can call it, everyone is like, I don't know, in a happy mood to be open to.
Okay, cool.
In other cultures, it will probably take longer. You need to be part of that group, and then there's that trust element that needs to build, and it's slower process depending on the country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the term friend actually can have a lot of meanings. It can start as a casual friendship, and then it becomes a close friendship. And you're right. I mean, the timing of when, how much time and what needs to happen for you to go from casual friends to close friends can vary from culture to culture. So that's right. After another step, after the environment brought you together, the situation must be right. And what I mean by that is that both of you want new friends. So that's not something you should take for granted. Not everybody's looking for friends at the same time as you. So you can miss each other, you know. So for example, you go and you want to be friends with someone who is very interested in you want to be friends with them, but they don't have time for you. Well, does that mean they don't like you? Does that mean there is something wrong with you? No, that's not it. Maybe they're busy, you know. Maybe they plan to move to another city.
They have other priorities.
Yeah, they have other priorities. They have a kid, all right? You have a kid. There's
many kids.
Your whole life changes, and you cannot have time for new friends. And some people actually have a few close friends, and they're not open to new ones, you know. Others are always open to new ones, and they always want to have new friends. And
others, they want to forget the old ones and keep finding new ones, right?
Exactly. And people go through these steps and these moments in life, so these things can change, you know. So when they're open to friendships and you're not, it's not going to work, and vice versa. So you can just miss each other, you know. So this is an important step to understand, because many people actually, when it doesn't work for them to make friends with one person or a group of friends, they think that there is something wrong with them, which is not necessarily true. You know, it's just maybe they have enough friends and they don't have time for you. I mean, no problem. You know, there is nothing wrong with you about that. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's interesting how the mind can trick you, especially if you are coming from a place of where the social skills is something that is not very easy, you know, for you. So then you can easily get into that state where as soon as you have a first rejection, you're going to say, okay, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't express myself this way, or I shouldn't look for more friendships or more people. I guess it's a difficult situation to deal with rejection, because we always think, why am I being rejected? Why this person doesn't want to talk to me? Why this person is not replying my phone calls. And sometimes I guess we just have to let it go. It's nothing to do with us, right? It's just person is not ready or is not
exactly
available. No, so
that's it. I mean, sometimes it's just they don't even know you. How can they reject you? They don't have even the time. They didn't even get the time to get to know you to reject you. And I think that's a waste of time to actually think about who rejected you. It's just a waste of time. Don't even go there. It doesn't matter. What matters is the people who actually care about you or who are looking for people like you. If you try to be friends with everyone and actually, if your goal is that everyone likes you, that's a bad goal.
To start with,
you're not vanilla. You're not vanilla, and you're open. And I want everybody to like me. Who are you? I mean, what are you, marshmallow? Everybody likes marshmallow. Very complicated human being. You shouldn't be like looking for everyone to like you. That's boring, and it's a waste of time. You gotta find the people who are going to actually. Who are going to actually like you for who you are and for the unique things about you. Those are the ones you want to look for.
Absolutely.
So that's about rejection. I think it's a waste of time to think about it.
One last question before we go, because GOI Connect is a really quick interview, and we go into the main thing.
Actually, if you don't mind, I just want to finish the friendship formula because it's not done very quickly.
There are more.
We don't have a lot of time.
Please.
All right, so you need to have good first conversations, and that's about getting to know them and finding commonalities and finding things in common, right? So a lot of people actually, things in common. A lot of people actually don't like having small talk and making small talk because they think small talk is very superficial. It's not very meaningful, all right? But small talk is actually the right technique that actually uncovers the common ground you have with the other person.
Yeah.
And what small talk is basically talking about a lot of subjects until you find those commonalities. Those things, like you talk about what you do, what you have done before, what are your hobbies, etc. You cover a lot of ground quickly so you can find where you have common ground, and then you can speak with more detail. You can go deeply and talk about that. So that's another step. The other one is being responsive and being actually emotionally there in the conversation, being emotionally responsive and responding to the same emotions. If someone is telling a sad story, you cannot just be smiling. That's just a condition. That's a condition for friendship to happen. So I know we don't have a lot of time to go into details, but
it's very interesting, and that comes to my next question actually. So if someone that is going to start reading your book, what's the core message that you can share with everyone here that is there for them?
Well, the core message actually is that I like to give people more freedom to do what they want to do in the social world. Okay, this is not about romance. This is not about professional networking necessarily, even if it helps there. But in the social world, I want to give them more freedom to do what they want to do, right? So many of them cannot go out to meet new people because they're shy. So I want to take that shyness away. So there is a chapter about shyness. Some of them are lonely, and they're so lonely, their head starts to say, their mind starts to go with ideas about something is wrong with them. And scientists have actually did studies and found that when you're the loneliest, you start to think that there are things that are wrong with you. You start to think there is something wrong with me. And there is always also loneliness is associated with the feeling of being in danger. And you think that if you actually go and talk to people, you're going to be rejected. And there is danger when you go to talk to people. And that has to do with how we evolved as human beings. So has to do, John Cacioppo spent 20 years just learning what loneliness is.
My God.
That was he is one of the best resources, one of the best sources, the biggest expert I know of about loneliness. Spent 20 years, just talking about loneliness and how it is connected to how we evolved as a species, you know. And that's what he found, that it's associated with danger. So some people are in that state. I want to get them from that state. I want to have them understand why their mind tells them that there is something wrong with them and how to get out of it. All right. So that's what I want to do.
That's
also some. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful gift from you. It's really great to have people trying to help others in a way, you know, through writing,
Yeah.
you know, through conferences, whatever you can do to help and spread the message that there are many things that can be different, you know, and relieve the pain. Sorry, continue that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. So the thing is, once we deal with those blockers, you know, those things that block people from even trying, we go to work on the skills. All right, the necessary skills. We don't waste time. I don't like wasting time. I like to give people exactly what they need and exactly what the skills they need. I don't want to go and talk about your character and spend 30 chapters talking about things that don't matter. I want to give you the shortest route from going wherever you are socially to wherever you want to be as fast as possible. That's I like efficiency. So I focus on the right skills, like starting conversations, having good conversations that are interesting, capturing the attention of people you talk to, finding common ground and commonalities very fast, and doing small talk. And I tell you why it's very important. I know a lot of people online are talking about how small talk is superficial, but it's very interesting. I mean, if you want to go in deep in interesting conversation, small talk will allow you to know that the other person is interested in the same things. If you don't do small talk, you'll never know. All right. So we learn that those necessary skills. We learn how to have a conversation in a group if you're not used to it. We do after that, we actually talk about what I call hook points, where these are like things in common you have with the other person, but they're also an idea. And they put the idea and possibility of you meeting them in the future. All right. So you bring that into the conversation. So not only you have a thing in common, but you also have a light promise that you're going to meet later. All right. Yeah. So that actually helps with exchanging contacts and staying in touch. And it gives you a reason to meet them later. It's not weird. It's not, it helps. I mean, if you do it right, the other person will ask for your contact information. You don't have to do it. And there is no risk of rejection if you know how to ask without asking. You know, so those are what I call hook points. Actually, they're ideas of how and why and when we will meet later. And once you do that, I go into the skill of making plans and making it easy, and how you should actually think of friendship in terms of groups, especially at the start. And how to make it so the whole group is interested in meeting. So you're not the only one doing the work. You're not the only one feeling like you have to approach people to see you. Everyone contributes and everyone wants to see each other. And it can be a group of 3 people. It doesn't have to be like 7 or 8. Yeah. So those are the skills. And once you start meeting them, how do you go from casual friends to close friends? And how do you keep friends? Because a lot of people actually know how to make friends, but they don't know how to keep them for the long term. So those are the skills. That's my message in the book. I try to do that, as give people the right skills and have them go from where they are to where they want to be socially in the shortest amount of time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We'll be sharing all information here on our channel about your website and the amazing things that you've been doing. Also, a little bit about your biography is going to be also showing on the site. And obviously, a link to your book. So I just wanted to see you again for another interview for the next book. Actually, are you planning another one?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually planning to do a video training. So this was great talking to you, Patricia, and I was happy to meet you the last time. And I learned a lot from you. And I think you're a really interesting human being. There is a lot in you that should be shared. And I cannot wait to meet you again and maybe talk about other things and learn from you and see you on stage, because I have only seen videos for now, so
That's
I cannot
true.
wait to see that.
Well,
in real life.
May 10th, GOI Delight.
Yeah.
You have to be here.
Yeah.
It'll be a big
Yeah,
event Del Mar.
I will.
We're gonna see each other for sure. So
Cool.
thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.